Have you guys ever been so down bad after losing a ranked game that you decide to climb up a mountain just to take all your frustrations out on a tree? No. Yeah, me too, man. So unlike you and I, this menace is about to do the unthinkable after getting destroyed in his placement matches, so he decides to clap a tree to avenge his pride. However, the crazy thing is, our boy Lee Sien actually ends up finding a tree looking like Shakira, as its hips ain't lying. And just like we all expected, our boy whips out some foam to slip inside the tree, since it would be too dangerous to get any splinters on something as big as a person's battering ram. What's even crazier is the fact that the tree's opening coincides with what looks like the real deal, as if this entire thing is either alive or a perfect tree sculpted by a master artist on Pinterest. Regardless, right before Lee decides to get the super sussy show on the road, he realizes it's hard to get the banana plantation up and running when it's super cold on top of a mountain. So he decides to pop in some AirPods to listen in on westernized pieces of sussy culture. So now with him listening to a white woman and a black man doing some rice cake destroying, he decides to cosplay Old Man Skrillex as he starts going bangarang. After the beat drops, our boy goes even crazier than normal as he begins using his hands to channel his inner tens, allowing him to jet dash forward past the point of no return as his dash is stuck on cooldown. Moments later, he takes a page out of Sword Art Online as Lee starts dreaming of using augmented reality to destroy even more trees without him leaving his house, so it's super clear our boy has nothing wrong with him at all. He just happens to be a Chad gamer in love with Roblox, Minecraft, and Valorant, so he just needs a moment to relax from time to time whenever he gets pummeled by those younger and better looking than him, as nothing else beats seating up a tree. After finishing his epic roleplay event from Goldshire in World of Warcraft, it dawned on Lee that he actually went through and let his intrusive thoughts win, as what kind of person would go toe-to-toe with a tree even if it looks like a person. But at least our boy is a nice guy as he cleans up after himself, but after taking a look at his fill-up bag, it looks like our boy has finally released all of his pent-up anger from his red carpet of losses in his match history. Nonetheless, as Lee leaves to go home to go back to his Radiant and Challenger grind, the tree begins to look like it's seeping some water from the very place Lee attacked with all his might. Shortly after, the tree began squirming, fully armed with pink hearts all around it. So maybe this is all just a sussy dream. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so upon arriving back home, Lee found a midget looking like some kind of elf from another world screaming and yelling at him for no reason. The midget girl then started to command our boy to take responsibility, but she's just met with a confused and profound face from Lee, as our boy is starting to think he exploded too hard, causing him to lose track of reality. Eventually, Lee found out that the elf wasn't wasting time screwing around, as she ended up removing his entire room and placed a bottomless pit for him to step into if he decided to not cooperate. Our boy then learns from the elf-like being that he violated the #1 rule in all of anime, and it's to never ring a ding a tree like a psychopath, since it could be someone's mom from another world. Now that Lee has discovered the tree he specifically chose tonight was somehow someone's mom, he starts yelling and hitting himself as he can't believe this is happening to him right now. Suddenly, the girl smirks, causing a bright purple flash to fully engulf our boy, so Lee loses track of his movement as everything around him begins to turn faster than his pronouns. Shortly after, the world stopped spinning around, and he started losing consciousness as he watched himself fall into some kind of world. Upon waking up in another world dimension, he is greeted by a game-like system congratulating him for becoming the first ever husband candidate of the stupid single tree. After making sure he isn't dreaming, he realizes he screwed up as he doesn't want to be covered by King Anime Recaps as the one boy who destroyed a tree, causing him to be reincarnated in another world. It's then revealed that there's multiple world trees around the universe, and their sole purpose is to protect and nurture the planet using their roots. Unfortunately for Lee, he ended up making contact with a young world tree wanting to make Earth its home, since Earth did not have a world tree to protect and nurture it. So the problem here is that our boy smashed the only tree willing to make Earth its home, so yeah, our boy screwed up bad. After pausing a moment to take all the information in, our boy starts maniacally laughing as he starts to think he can finally be the main character in his life, and it's all thanks to a random tree he found on a mountain. But then, out of nowhere, he slaps himself to stop laughing. So now having scared that our boy is exhibiting some extra hidden different personalities, exactly like in the movie Split. Regardless, he starts yelling at himself, wondering how he could laugh at such a dire time like this, as he needs to get out ASAP due to his clan on Clash of Clans needing him to 3-star the last base. As he weeps knowing that his clan will kick him out after missing his war attacks, a notification interrupts his sadness claiming that the World Tree of Purity is super shy. After a while, he gets super agitated that a notification keeps popping up as the World Tree of Purity is using the game system to talk to him like some kind of AI. Eventually, he gets enough of the world tree communicating with him, so he starts attacking the system notifications to the best of his abilities, whilst commanding her to bring him back to his original world. Unfortunately for Lee, the world tree claps back by refusing to send him back to Earth. Instead, she gives him a quest to make sure he's worthy of being a husband candidate, and if he fails to complete it, she warns him the penalty will be death. Upon hearing her last words, our boy decides to play ball like a true wimp, so he decides to ask what exactly must he do to complete his quest. And within a blink of an eye, Lee finds himself washing ashore an island with a humongous sand castle before him, mysteriously named the Academy. His task is now to go inside and graduate within 120 days, or else he will be fed to the neighboring tribal chieftain and turned into a very mystical and yummy soup. But if our boy is actually able to complete the mission, he will gain the quest reward of the world tree's sussy love, while also having the added benefit of being able to live on. However, we discover he wasn't actually teleported to a deserted island, but it was actually just Lee dreaming about what's about to happen to him if he fails the mission. So he snaps back to reality and begins researching the new world he's in. He then finds out that the brand new world he got teleported to is basically Earth combined with some fantasy game elements, so there's a bunch of dungeons and everyone literally looks human. Nevertheless, the world tree interrupts him again and forces him to create his character in the brand new world, as all of his stats will reflect what he looks like on the planet. As such, our boy gets super excited at the thought of allocating all his skill points, since on Earth, all he did was game and nothing else, so at least he has some gaming expertise to help guide him through. But then it turns out he must be an iron player, as bro decides to sacrifice all of his charm points so he could put more points into luck, causing the world tree to start weeping and shaking her head furiously. Against the world tree's wishes, Lee confirms his new abilities by punching the confirmation button, causing a blinding light to shine through the sky and straight into his body. He then starts getting infused with an otherworldly power, as lightning begins to surge through his entire body and out into the surroundings. After being infused with lightning and the traces finally going away, he begins feeling exhausted as he starts panting like he's totally out of breath, while also feeling super heavy, exactly like if he transformed into Nico Avocado. Nonetheless, he turns back towards the world tree only to find her absolutely sobbing about his new look, as Lee hasn't yet realized everyone else on the planet is only able to see his super ugly and overweight brand new version of himself. This doesn't bother our Chad though, so he tells the world tree not to worry, as he can just work out every day starting from tomorrow to lose all the weight he's apparently gained, as he has 120 days before the husbando exams. However, on his 13th day of constantly working out in the brand new world he lives in, he starts breaking down as he's making no progress, losing some fat, so he's basically like the artist being too lazy to draw an overweight version of himself. But he knows he can't give up now, as he wants to go back to the real world to watch his beloved Lakers win the championship again, so he's able to hype himself back up. As he continues his jog through a nearby university, he passes by two girls whom he overhears making fun of his appearance, claiming that he's even uglier than the troll ogre from Dark and Darker. As such, Lee gets riled so much that he actually turns into an ugly monkey instead. This causes him to finally lash out and start yelling at the girls, and he even goes as far as to chase them down, as we find out our boy has some anger management issues. But then, as he chases after the girls that were busy making fun of him earlier, all of his commotion and loudness alert a nearby goddess busy quenching their thirst with some Mountain Dew. Then turns out that the girl is not only beautiful, but she got some massive pyramids of Giza, and she even managed to stick an entire oven below the ship's deck that could rival Nicki Minaj. Unluckily for our boy though, she stops to look only for her to start profusely sweating at the sight of seeing the ugliest man alive. Meanwhile, back to the action, our boy is too slow and he doesn't have enough stamina to continue chasing, so he ends up picking up a rock like a true monkey, threatening them that they shouldn't make fun of ugly people, as there's nothing wrong with having low charm. Luckily, a security officer is able to apprehend our boy before he got even more rowdy, so she tells him that being loud in public spaces is strictly prohibited. As such, she warns Lee that this is the last warning she will ever give him again, so we discover that he's actually been caught doing the same thing at least 6 times in the past week. And so our boy apologizes and promises to never step foot on the park again, but the lady lets him go as she feels some pity for Lee, as life handed him a straight 0 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale. But as soon as he leaves the premises of the park, some girl walks by him and starts insulting him by calling him a dinosaur, so our boy has to try his hardest to calm down. Regardless, he decides it's time to finally amp up his workouts, as he can't even call it working out if all he does is jog around without lifting any weights. But then, just as he finishes signing up, he gets instantly rejected as the guy refuses him membership for being so unattractive that Lee has already broken the rule of never ever being disgusting or disrespectful towards other gym members. Our boy then attempts to plead for his case, telling the man he's not violating anything as he's not that ugly, but the guy claps back by handing him a mirror. Upon looking into the mirror, he transforms into Snow White, so the mirror actually instantly breaks just at the sheer sight of Lee's face, even though he can't actually see what he looks like as he can only see his previous self. Nonetheless, he heads back home only to find himself being followed by numerous TV stations as he becomes the hot topic of the planet for being the man who broke a mirror with his face. He's so ugly now, even though the artist is too lazy to show his transformation, that Breaking News decided to cover how he's the first man ever to break a mirror with his reflection. Nevertheless, he's forced to head back home feeling absolutely defeated that he can't even join a gym to pump some iron, as he knows he only has 1 month left before he has to pass the exam to make sure he's worthy of the World Tree. However, the next day he picks himself back up as this hardcore gamer knows that he just gotta have the Sigma grind set to make sure he can come out of this universe alive. Now fast forward to a month later, our boy has actually completed the impossible as he's evolved from Nico Avocado's weight bracket and joined Chris from Mr. Beast, as he successfully ends up only 99 kilograms. As such, to celebrate Lee's achievements, the World Tree helps him out as she unlocks a shop for him to use, where he can gain currency anytime he makes someone happy. But since he accidentally made the Goddess of Purity happy using his siege battering ram on Earth, he's given a boatload of money to spend. However, our boy has been playing too much gacha games like Honkai Impact, so he ends up spending it all trying to win a jackpot from a wheel. Luckily for him, he actually ends up winning something useful as he gains a mask looking like Metapod that allows him to gain an extra 2 points in attractiveness, and the longer he wears the mask, the more he becomes a Rees God Master 9000. After spending all of his points and only winning the mask with 1,000,000 water bottles, Lee shows us what's it like to have an IQ level lower than room temperature. Nonetheless, he decides to celebrate his weight loss by heading to a nearby mall with his mask equipped, hoping to buy some fresh new clothes. Unfortunately, he realizes everything is expensive AF since he pretty much blew through his initial starting cash given to him for being a new character. As Lee continues to contemplate on whether or not he should just use up the rest of his cash on some fire Roblox skins, he ends up overhearing that a famous tree from the Holy Family has showed up inside the mall. And so our boy decides to check out all the commotion surrounding the Holy Tree since he's bored of the World Tree not showing her true identity to him. Shortly after getting into position, Lee becomes mesmerized at the sight of the Holy Tree since she really do be having some Honkais on her. With all eyes glued on her, she starts twirling around like a Beyblade as she knows her rice cakes keep bouncing around like it's hot off the oven. Suddenly, as our boy continues staring as he blends into the crowd, the Holy Tree actually makes eye contact with him and holds it for more than a second. Using just a single 2-second stare, our boy loses his battle in the month of November as he accidentally explodes with his chug-chug machine in full overdrive. He then falls down on his knees as his legs couldn't handle his own earthquake shaking him to his core, but our boy does not realize Miss Holy Tree has slowly made it in front of him. She then surprisingly calls him out in front of everyone, but then she tells Lee how she knows our boy has something good hiding somewhere beneath, so she starts showing off her tree bark in public. And you can say this tree really is something else, man, since it's way better than the ones on Earth. Anyways, back to the action, our boy finds himself sitting down on the top floor of the Holy Tree headquarters, utterly confused to how he got here or why he's even here in the first place. Then, with just a blink of the eye, the Holy Tree appears in front of him as if she activated her teleportation devil fruit. Regardless, as she continues staring at Lee without saying anything, she ends up procuring a smile right before she starts activating her Sussy Nation attacks. As such, she gets up and slams her desk, whilst our boy is busy Sussy Day dreaming of things that could happen in this very scenario he's currently in. Mere seconds later, the Holy Tree closes the gap between it and Lee using her Sussy Jutsu powers, leaving our boy in total shock as he can't believe what the heck is happening right now. Lee then starts to look for his asthma inhaler. As he's unable to handle the intense scenario he faces due to the Holy Tree pulling some very unholy actions as she parted his Red Sea of pants without any hesitation. She then starts laughing like a true crazy maniac featured on a Netflix show, as she starts asking our boy why his banana tree plantation outgrew its plot size all of a sudden. Shortly after exposing Lee for his surprising actions, the Holy Tree channels even more of its unholy powers, causing our boy to repeatedly say he's sorry as his banana tree plantation cannot be controlled once it goes crazy. Upon hearing his excuse, the Holy Tree continues its attack straight onto the defensive side of Lee's court, as he allows her to easily get to his basket. Now that she's right underneath the net, the tree asks our boy why he's being so shy, as it looks like she's ready to jump really high to dunk her basketball straight in like prime Dwight Howard. But Lee still does nothing as he's still purely stun-locked by the attacks of the Holy Tree. But let's be real, he's totally enjoying the fact that he doesn't have to do anything this time for the tree to continue on charging. Eventually, she stops cosplaying Chef Curry in his prime as she doesn't want to continue draining their basketball, so she changes the subject and simply asks our boy what his name actually is, to which Lee replies by revealing his true real name. After discovering his name, the holy tree places its hand on his back, where she softly lets our boy know that there's a lot of unique people like him in this world. However, the holy tree quickly transformed into its true demon self, so Lee learns real quick that she's actually only after some of his secret Dragon Balls that he won from the gacha earlier. Our boy originally thought it was utterly useless as the fine print clearly explained only girls are allowed to use it, but now he knows he has the upper hand as the holy tree really desires its effects. She then orders him to swiftly give it to him, but our boy hesitates as he expected her to offer huge amounts of money first in return for such a seemingly rare item. As such, Lee refuses to hand it over, so he decides to finally wake up and stand up for himself, leading to him asking the holy tree why exactly are the arboreal balls so important that she actually went through all this trouble to bring him in. And so she reveals that for tree people like her, the legendary balls are a key accelerant for growth as it transforms a baby straight into its adult form. And so that's why she's trying her hardest to make sure she's the first to get to his rare item, since she actually has some tree babies she needs to make sure grows to their full potential as part of the royal oak family. But then something within Lee causes him to temporarily evolve into a Chad as he turns his back to her, where he realizes the tree people come from the seed of his world tree. So technically, if he ends up marrying the world tree of purity, then he knows he could rice cake smash all the other trees, whilst they name him as the ultimate daddy of them all. Nevertheless, he gets brought back to reality as he starts sweating profusely at the thought of him actually pulling off such a Sigma male move, as it requires him to actually stand up for himself against a royal family. However, as he struggles on deciding what course of action should he choose, the holy tree interrupts him by making a snarky remark to make sure he thinks properly about it. As such, our boy decides it's time for him to no longer be a pushover like his past life on Earth, as he now has the perfect opportunity to turn his life around and change into Faker, the best pro gamer of all time. And just like his idol, he places the red buff perfectly on the table using his amazing mechanical skills, enticing the holy tree to come forward to claim her prize. However, he baits her last second by taking back the red buff before she could reach it, ordering her to wait. Our boy then activates his voice changer to make his voice deeper, claiming that he actually has 2 more at home and he's planning to reclaim all 7 Dragon Balls to summon forth the Eternal Dragon. However, the holy tree calls him stupid, telling him that he shouldn't have revealed he has 2 more, since she's going to steal them all away from him like a true savage. She then continues to make fun of him for revealing way too much information, as Lee could have just gotten away with only losing 1 arboreal ball. Regardless, her constant insults forces our boy to be so frustrated to the point where he could actually feel his face burning up from anger building up within him. Eventually, his anger subsides after realizing that the World Tree has given him a new sub-quest, where Lee learns he needs to make the Holy Tree start leaking like a broken faucet ASAP, or else face imminent death. After reading the alert, our boy instantly turns white like a ghost due to its consequence of failing, causing even the Holy Tree to be worried about Lee. Nevertheless, he knows he needs to complete the mission, so the only way to go about this is to make sure he heads to the nearest bathroom, as he won't be able to last more than a second if he doesn't do a premature explosion before taking on the quest. But right before he leaves the room, his anger management disorder activates as he can no longer take all the insults he's receiving lightly. Instead of lining it to the bathroom, he instead comes back and starts closing all the doors and locking them afterwards, as our boy has finally had enough. Now with his anger taking control, he channels his inner Sussy Beka as he picks up the tree and slams it on the desk beside them. He then squares up and starts taking over the walls of the Holy Tree through effective use of his battering ram, allowing him to start the procedure of intense rice cake baking. As he continues the legendary siege of the Holy Tree, Lee decides to take off his mask as it's getting in the way, but this helps him out as the Holy Tree can't believe how ugly he really is. And so the rest was history, as Lee successfully invades the plains of the Holy Tree, allowing Lee to absolutely take over, causing her to experience a world she's never expected. Anyways, long story short, the bike ride across the desk was so crazy that the Holy Tree's shoes came off just from a single impact of Lee's rocket, as it started continuously blasting off into space like Teen Rocket. In the end, our boy became exactly like his idol Saitama, but instead of becoming the new One-Punch Man, he became the most legendary One-Thrust Man instead. And the reason why he became so legendary to the royal tree is because she finally found out that a banana tree plantation can continue on forwards, even if the banana has been harvested once already. And in the end, the absolute menace claps back when the oak tree tells him today is the best day for her tree saplings to be created with 100% effectiveness, so he ended up exploding the Terminator within the tree. Now the crazy part to all of this is after our dude exploded on purpose, he withdrew his horse, and the horse was already ready for its second race. Shortly after showcasing the ability to instantly get ready for another match, Lee gets up and tells her that although he might have already forgiven her, his McDonald's feels differently as it's roaring to get revenge after her initial display of aggressiveness. Regardless, with Lee's sword already unsheathed and ready to do some light sparring against a tree for match 2, our boy holds nothing back and charges forward without any hesitation as he starts screaming like King Arthur with his Excalibur. Now with round 2 of the best of 5 series in the middle of its epic battle, Lee's opponent within the noble trees end up succumbing to his relentless attacks. As such, the unholy oak tree is unable to resist the truth and lets it escape as she stops pretending our boy's anime horse is the worst she's ever seen. Instead, her role in attempting to become the best Hollywood actress in the world has come to an end, since Lee was able to see and feel what she truly had in mind, so his confidence levels begin to balloon even higher. Anyways, long story short, our boy ended up placing a saddle in front of him using a tree, and in regards to round 2, Lee was the clear winner with the score ending 69-0. Nonetheless, the whole battle of the best of 5 series has led to a savage unlock within our boy's brain. So now the only thing he can think about is how awesome doing rice cake smashing with real trees in another world really is. Oh, and I totally forgot that his future wife was the one that made him do the subquest in conquering the oak tree, which is actually a really weird man if you think about it. Regardless, with the completion of the subquest, Lee has also gained another special Dragon Ball, plus an additional special feature from the Oak Tree Encyclopedia, giving him a slight bonus to his wind magic capabilities. Now that our boy has completed his first ever subquest, he puts his special mask back on, and then we discover he's super addicted to trees now, so he's going to try his hardest to get in the academy. It then dawns on him that if he's able to successfully pass the entrance exam, that not only will he win over the mother of all trees, but he will also get the chance to become Ash Ketchum as he wants to catch all them trees. Oh, and by the way guys, he's not that bad since he ended up sharing the extra Dragon Ball from his reward pile, but he kinda is since he surprisingly sticks it inside the treehouse. At least the oak tree loved the random special item entering a place the tree never expected to open up, so do what you will with that information. Nevertheless, shortly after giving away one of his rewards, he ends up leaving the entire oak tree headquarters feeling good about himself, while saying out loud that he had a tremendous and fun time even though he thought he was going to get destroyed. Instead, he came out of the headquarters feeling totally invigorated and became the man responsible for destroying trees in ways you cannot imagine. Plus, he added his first ever capture into his tree decks. So all in all, our boy had a perfect day today, so he's already ready to get home, and upon arriving, he sits down and reflects about what happened. He then got scared and sat by a window overlooking his front entrance, after he realized he just messed with an entire noble tree family, but luckily, Xiao never sent anyone to destroy him. Instead, the holy oak tree came out of her office looking absolutely flustered, but she ends up telling her head of security that no issue came up even though they heard and felt the earthquake coming from the room. Instead, the only thing she did was pass over the special arboreal ball to the head of her security, which she received from Lee. After handing it over to him without thinking, the man looks like he's about to gag from its disturbing smell, as Seong totally forgot how she got the Dragon Ball in the first place since it entered through the forbidden door. Now fast forward a couple days, Lee went back to grinding out some of skills by exercising every time he could, as he knows time is fleeting and the upcoming entrance exam is closing in very soon. Even his future wife has started to get super excited with his progress to increase his charm skill, as he's slowly and surely returning back to normal with his abs even reappearing. Eventually, our boy received a notification from the World Tree of Purity alerting him that his weight level has shifted forward to obese, which doesn't even make sense as bro got some abs. Anime be anime, I guess, so regardless, we fast forward to the day of the legendary entrance exams that will dictate whether the menace will live on or will Lee just perish for failing the exam. After arriving at the special academy, he sits down while waiting, but the dude is already shaking like mad due to nervousness, as failure is not an option. With time slowly passing, he gets even more nervous to the point he almost had a missing toilet problem, as Lee learned the exam is actually a duel between everyone else trying to join the academy. All our boy needs to do is to just beat the person next to him, and he will be good to go in this brand new world. But after finally checking out who's beside him, he realizes his opponent is going to be a girl. Now this girl isn't just a random normie, since upon inspection, Lee discovers that the pink-haired girl is actually Azalea, and she just so happens to be a successor of a very famous holy tree lineage. Nonetheless, Sussy Baka Lee stops nervously shaking as he gets enamored and distracted by another tree, since seeing her in person causes his banana tree plantation to instantly mature due to her being so pretty. However, our boy stares at Azalea for way too long to the point where she ends up noticing, causing her to call Lee out as no popular girl wants the attention of an ugly duckling. As such, our boy responds super awkwardly as playing Valorant or League of Legends all day taught him no social interaction skills, but he's able to stutter and make an excuse about how he saw her on the news. Luckily for our boy, she falls for his lame excuse, so she stops confronting him, but she goes back to staring at the wall looking absolutely bored. Eventually, she stops looking bored when an elf-like boy named Jung Se-woo walks in and sits down. Azalea instantly shifts her gaze from the wall and instantly stares straight at the boy while looking like she caught the love bug. Of course, Lee feels disheartened and totally jealous that Jung didn't even have to do anything but sit down, and girls started falling head over heels for him. Regardless, his jealousy gets put aside as he hears an announcer call his group, so our boy swiftly changes focus as he needs to give the exam his all or he's gonna get sent to the afterlife. Shortly after entering the examination room, Lee learns that not only does he have to face off against Azalea, but he also has to deal with the Ultra Chad beside him, making him look like a dwarf. Surprisingly, Jung starts playfully insulting Azalea, but he's totally serious about destroying her in the duel. Meanwhile, our boy gets flustered as he begins feeling left out of the group. However, it turns out that Jung is actually really nice as he ends up including Lee into the group conversation by asking him how this written portion went. Jung then continued on by revealing to Lee that he's also human, and since they're both humans, he wants Lee to succeed so they could get accepted together. Unfortunately for the two humans though, both of them end up getting picked first to duel each other and are quickly told to choose between a wooden sword or a wooden staff for their weapon. The two then step up to duel each other, where Jung tells him to make sure he doesn't hold back, but right before he could say anything, his voice gets drowned out by Azalea simping for Jung. Nonetheless, both boys end up choosing the wooden sword as their weapon, but before they could even start, our bro looks like he's Kai-Cenat with his height. And within 1 second of the duel starting, Jung quickly closes the gap and swings his sword so hard that he ended up breaking Lee's sword with one blow. With Lee's sword now rendered useless, Jung continues forward looking like he's super hell-bent on destroying our boy. Luckily for Lee though, right before Jung was about to send him back to where he belongs, the instructor steps in and orders Lee to pick up his weapon as Jung violated the rule of using spells. Unfortunately for our boy though, Jung's tremendous display of power in just a few seconds has already gotten into Lee's head, so he starts contemplating if he can even win. However, just as Lee is about to lose all hope in himself, future waifu world Tree of Purity interrupts him and cheers him on by telling him that he can totally win in style. And just like that, with the help of a chat box looking like Chat GPT with emojis, our boy's confidence and hope gets restored, so he readies for round 2. As soon as the instructor blows his whistle to indicate the start of the round, Lee instantly charged forward and path towards victory. Unfortunately, after blinking once, he found himself instantly defeated by the elf boy, where he got left with a lot of bruises, but at least the blows he received weren't from a real sword. After losing in style and heading out of the examination room, Azalea and Jung come out to greet our boy before he leaves, so they told him to keep his head up as he did a good job. Regardless, our boy had to leave the academy feeling totally defeated and left constantly thinking about his weak goodbye, since the only thing he could think of at the time was saying you guys did good too. And since he was the first one told to go home, his one-sided defeat by Jung has left a bitter taste in his mouth. Nevertheless, after a couple hours, Lee decided to put his attractiveness plus one mask back on to figure out a way to enter the academy, as he despised others, feeling pity for him. However, just like it seemed to be destiny, Lee bumped into Seong as he was wandering around back inside the academy.